It's just a huge honor to have in the studio, my gosh, Jay Letwat. He's the executive director at business development at Sunbit. He has over 23 years of corporate sales and leadership experience spanning over several industries, including corporate consulting, online advertising, finance, and healthcare. He specializes in building processes to maximize revenue growth for new products and services, in particular companies whose product or technology is disruptive to the current market landscape. Prior to joining Sunbit, Jay owned and managed a parental control software company that safeguarded over 120,000 families' internet browsing experience by blocking dangerous and inappropriate websites like dentaltown.com to children. At Sunbit, since the very early days, Jay has focused on building strategic national accounts and introducing Sunbit's innovative buy now and pay later financing technology solution to retailers and service providers across the U.S. He has been responsible for building the national dental practice from scratch and managing its current hypergrowth across single practices, multi-unit practice groups, and DSOs. He has extensive Big Four consulting and advisory management experience at large global professional firms, including Provitai and Arthur Andersen. Now, it used to be when I got at MBA school, the Big Four accounting firms were Deloitte Touche, Domatsu, Ernst & Young, KPMG, which is Kleinveld, Peet, Marvick, Goldiller, and then Pricewaterhouse, Cooper House. Is that still a thing, the Big Four?
Yeah, so I think back in the day there was the Big Eight, and then it went down to the Big Six, and now it's the Big Four. Yeah, they just keep on consolidating.
And you know what I love the most about that list? And by the way, the top 5 consulting firms are McKinsey & Company, Boston Consulting, Accenture, Deloitte Consulting, which is, Deloitte, one of the accounting firms too, but they got a consulting deal, and Bain & Company. And what I have talked about extensively with like my friend Imtiaz Manji is that I noticed even in this write-up about, you said that you are into single practices, multi-unit practice groups, and DSOs. And really, I think it starts with a single dentist, and then it turns into, I was a single dentist and only lasted a year. It's boring when you're the only dentist. I mean, you go from 120 kids in your dental school class, of which at least half were awesome alcoholics, and now you're all alone and no one to talk about anything with. And so group practices, they seem happier and healthier, and dentists are more aggressive. Like, I can try to take out this tooth because I got Jay back there. If I can't get out, he'll come. You got a friend. Sure. So then it starts with solo, goes to group, and then multi-location groups. And I don't really I don't even think DSO until one. I guess DSO could be, you could say, okay, it's the finance is different, private equity, or if you're in Australia, a publicly traded market like 1-300 Smiles or Pacific Smiles or Hong Kong's Q&M. But that's really what it is. It's a dentist, he goes to solo, and then solo dentist goes to group, and then the group goes to multi-locations. Because when the patient comes in, they don't care if you're from Kmart, Walmart, Sears, whatever. You just told me I have 4 cavities. And Jay, I don't know how to tell if you're lying or not. I mean, I can't Google, does Howard have 4 cavities? I know what this is. I know what my computer is. Selling the invisible that involves, I'm going to touch you, personally violate your space, and then hurt you with a shot and scare you. And then when it's all done, it's got to look acceptable. That's something that's a hard thing. You can. Henry Ford can roll out 10 million Model Ts, but right. You just can't roll out 10 million dentists that all come out and deliver that basket of goods, and then compile that with the fact that every time it started back and when Reader's Digest took an FMX and study models to 30 different dentists, and they got 30 different treatment plans. And the name of the article was, "Is he ripping you off?" I mean, and then the National Institute of Dental Research thought, is this seedy journalism? But they didn't think so, because the guy got a Pulitzer Prize on his work with 3 Mile Island. So he sits there and they say, let's redo this. And if you like math at all, of course, you wouldn't do 30 unless you just hate the kids you're teaching. So they did 100. And the first 2 treatment plans were nothing. Mm-hmm. And then 3 to 100 were all different.
Yep.
So when you look at treatment plan acceptance, I mean, there's people that look in your mouth all day long, and if they don't see a big cavity or something obvious, they're like, "You're good." And that builds a big practice of followers. And there's other people that go in there, and it's a $30,000 treatment plan anytime they look at a mouth.
Is it any different though than in that respect with the treatment plans versus going to like your local mechanic, right? You go. Some guy says you need this. It's 3,000. Other guy says you'll be fine for another 2-3 years. Just go along. Just depends on what they see. Their perspective.
I can't believe you said that, because the last time I got my oil changed, they told me I had a leak, and then it was a $680 repair and everything, and
Right.
I just thought to myself, like, how did I not notice that on my driveway? And I can't get it out of my mind, because now it's like 2 full months later, and there's still not a spot on my driveway. And so
figure.
yeah, when it's not, and that is a classic example of what I've always said about 5,000 years of history, that the things you have to have is you have to be transparent and have competition checks and balances. Whenever they're opaque and you don't know what they're doing, and there's no checks and balances, it's absolute authority, it's just tyranny. And and then you'll ask some guy, "Oh, by the way, who's the owner of Bitcoin?" "Oh, it's mystical. We don't know. We don't know who started it." Oh, that sounds like I know how this story is going to end. And they say it's on the internet. No, every electron is coming from Russia, North Korea, and China and Iran. And, so if something's not transparent, like when you go to sign a DSO contract and they tell you that you're not allowed to show it to someone else, it's like, did you just throw away the whole U.S. Constitution? That it violates transparency. So when you get old like me, it's pattern recognition. Like when you start telling me your bullshit story, and I'm wondering if there's a gas station between now and the end of this monologue, you've already violated transparency, and you want to get rid of checks and balances. When I tell you, and you got to play with a full hand, so I'm going to ask you this. Sunbit, is it faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and smaller? That's playing with a full hand. And every dental idea that's brought to me, I say, is it faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and smaller? And you say, well, actually, it's so good, we had to make it more expensive because it's that good. And you're like, all right, so you'll just make some noise, playing with 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4 cards, until someone with a full hand comes and just mows you over from behind. So Sunbit, in my mind, it's a new fintech.
Yes, we're clearly a fintech. We're part of the buy now, pay later space. We call it, from the dentistry perspective, we call it smile now, pay later. So again, at the highest level, we allow people to get the products and services they need today and pay for it fairly and comfortably over time. In the case of dentistry, it is faster, it is more efficient, it's cleaner. It's a better process, and we help more people. So it's pretty unique, and it's very, very different than what's out there today. I mean, how familiar, I'm sure you have your own practice, Howard, obviously. How familiar are you with kind of the current payment landscape in terms of patient financing solutions?
Well, if you you'd have to date me. I mean, my remarks. I mean, people are always sending me things I said.
Sure.
When I got out of school, the only thing that worked at the time. This is going back to '87.
Sure.
Please tell me you were out of high school by '87.
I wasn't.
Oh,
but let's just say for the purposes of argument,
God.
I am. I'll make you feel better.
All right. So I'm in this 24-acre center, Safeway, Walgreens, Pizza Hut, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And they had a bank there. At the time, it was called Valley National Bank. Then it was Nations Bank. Now it's Chase Bank and Jamie Dimon. But anyway, I would pre-fill out all the credit card information. This was no computer, no fax.
Nothing.
Back when I had a pencil sharpener in my office room. And so we would fill out a Chase bank card, and they loved it because all my patients are from Ahwatukee. This is their branch bank for Ahwatukee. They want to loan money. And so that was a really good deal. And this was so old that the branch manager, she would run over, and when they got done filling out, to meet the person. But
wow.
that was there. Then Care Credit was a big thing. And Care Credit, it just depends on who you're talking to where, because some offices say it approves a bunch of people, but they're usually in neighborhoods where the median household income is $60,000 or greater. but some people claim differently. But what I want to hear about is you're saying it's faster and more efficient, cleaner, faster. I mean, back in the day, even when Care Credit started, we had to fax in the forms,
Sure.
and everything took a lot of time.
Sure.
So I'm sure with a smartphone, I'm sure everything's faster.
Yep.
Now with this. So tell me how this fintech works.
So I can, rather than tell you, I could actually show you.
Okay.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
So basically, all we do is we provide an iPad to the practice office for the front office staff, okay? And I'll show it to you right here. We can do it right now. So here's how it works. So basically, again, the office has the iPad in their office. They want to offer financing to patients. Front office person would select their name. And by the way, you should probably use a stopwatch here just to show you how fast it is. Okay? You want to do it? Let's do it.
I'll do a stopwatch.
And I won't go any faster or slower than it would normally take.
There's my stopwatch. Start.
Okay. So the front office would select their name. They would click scan card, right, like that. We then take a state driver's license or ID. On the back, there's a fuzzy barcode. You put it down. You scan the back of that barcode just like that. What happens? It automatically extracts the information, no pen and paper. The patient types in their phone number and email. They click continue. The front office staff says, hey, is this your updated address information? They say yes. You click copy to form. The patient clicks agree. Congratulations, Howard. You're approved for $4,100.
In 35 seconds.
Yep. That's it. Now, that's the faster part of the equation that you were kind of building before, right? It's super fast, which is kind of a key element, right, with the offices, because they're crazy. There's people coming in and out. There's people making appointments. There's, checks on insurance, check in, check out. They're super busy. The front office staff is very much overworked in most of the offices I've seen. I've seen hundreds, if not a couple thousand offices, right? So you need fast. But if it's fast and it doesn't approve a lot of people, then you're really not accomplishing anything, right? So you've been approved for $4,100. We approve 100% of people with a FICO of 500 or higher. If you have a FICO of 510, 520, deep subprime, you're going to get an offer. If you're super prime, 750, 770, you're going to get an offer as well. So nearly 85% of the patient spectrum for an office will be approved, but 100% from 500 plus. So we love subprime, we love prime, we love super prime. We will take everything. Okay?
Okay. A quarter of our listeners are still in dental school.
Okay.
They might not know what a FICA score of 500 is.
Okay.
Can you just, they don't even might not even know what FICA stands for. Can you talk a little bit about a FICA score of 500 and what that actually means?
So FICO is basically a measure of your credit worthiness. Now it's a fairly old metric from the 70s, which most credit card companies use today to determine if you qualify for financing. So we use that statistic, but also we're using a lot of machine learning algorithmic models in order to determine what someone truly can afford. And oftentimes, many times, that number is a lot different than what a traditional credit card company will show. So not only are we approving nearly everyone, we're doing it super fast. And in order to get that approval, we're not impacting someone's credit score, which is really, really important, right? It's what we call a soft inquiry, which means your credit is not impacted. And then if the patient decides to take the loan, we also do not do any hard credit check. And Howard, that's very, very unique because generally when you're taking a loan of any sort, your credit is hit. We do not do that. So from the patient perspective, it reduces the amount of friction. So from the office staff, whether there's the office manager, receptionist, or treatment coordinator, they're more apt to offer us because there isn't that friction of, ooh, you're going to be hit with the credit score, or you're going to be declined 60, 70% of the time like some other solutions. So we're faster, we approve more, and we're better for the patient.
Okay, so much things I got to talk to.
Yeah,
First
for
of all,
sure.
FICO.
Yep.
was originally the Fair, Isaac and Company. It was a data analytics company based in San Jose, and was founded by Bill Fair and Earl Isaac in 1956. It's a, but so when you say FICO score, it's a trigger for me because, you always hear from all the do-gooders about how you should help the poor. Why don't you loan money to the poor? They can't get a loan for a house, a car, whatever. So then you give it to them, and then they turn around and say, "Well, you're a predatory lender. How dare you, Jay, go after and give some poor guy a loan with higher interest rates?" It's like, okay, so you don't want him to get any loan? I mean, I don't.
Look, it's a good point.
And this goes back a long part because you got to remember, never talk about religion. So let's go there. Christianity banned any and all kinds of interests, and so did Islam. And banking was innovated in the illegal alleys, along with prostitution and drugs and all that kind of stuff. So people who were marginalized out of society, who couldn't go to the universities and become a dentist, those were all the founders of banking and financing by this marginalized people. And it was marginalized for these same issues that you have today. I don't know what you want. I mean, you want us to loan to the poor, and then when we do, they're called a predator. Make up your mind. I know all the big religious books. My two older sisters are nuns. We've had lengthy discussions about this because when my sisters were nuns and they got a credit card, it reminds me in Kansas, it's so adorable. They have a huge Amish population. And you see the old guys on the horse and the wagon, and then you see the little girl in the back, all dressed up in her beautiful dress on an iPhone. And you're like, okay, something doesn't make sense here. You're blocking the traffic with a horse, and your daughter's on an iPhone. Okay, you're a Catholic nun with a credit card complaining about predatory lending that goes back 2,000 years. So it underscores the FICO score, no pun intended, underscores how people have a long emotional history with financing and banking. Like you can go home and talk about your cooking and cleaning and hang up your towel, but you switch over to money and it's always emotional.
Yep. Agreed. I mean, FICO in general is what you need. You need a decent score in order to, get a car loan, get a house loan. So traditionally, it's a pretty good predictor of the creditworthiness of an individual over a fairly long period of time. 5 years for a car, or 20, 30 years for a house. But we look at things a bit differently. One, we're not a credit card, right? So if you think about it from a credit card issuer perspective, they're looking 3-4 years out. Is this person going to be employed? May he get a divorce or she get a divorce? Is this person going to go to Las Vegas and blow their money? So they're looking at a lot of different things. What can happen over 3 or 4 years? What we do, we're in installment loans, really at the point of sale. So what I'm looking at is this root canal that costs $1,500. Can this person pay me, let's say, $80 a month for the next 18 months? Will he have $80 in his checking account every month in order to pay? So it's the calculus, the mechanics is quite different in terms of the calculation, in terms of is this person creditworthy or not. From a traditional FICO perspective, they may have a very low FICO, meaning they've had some trouble in the past. Maybe they've had late payments. Maybe they've had non-payments. But we're looking at something a bit different, right? We're looking at a much shorter duration, right? And we're only looking at that particular expenditure rather than the person's complete behavior, which may have been, by the way, poor in the past. And so we're looking at it on an individual basis, looking at thousands of pieces of information. And we have an algorithmic model that kind of figures it out and immediately can spit out, okay, are we going to approve this person? Again, we're approving 85%. What's going to be their approval amount? What are we going to charge the merchant? How are we going to minimize that? How are we going to minimize the APR for the patient? And we kind of do this all in real time. APR is the annual percentage rate. So it's essentially the interest rate that you would pay on an equivalent, let's say, a 12-month period. Even if it's a 6-month loan, every loan has an APR, which is kind of annualized, what you'd be paying.
when you said the root canal was $1,500, you know where he got that $1,500. He's in Dr. H's endo. Only the endodontists get $1,500. Us poor bastards in Phoenix, general dentists, we're lucky to get $700. But Stephen Heimovich, who was on the show 1173 and wrote The Dentist Who Gets It, just an amazing pioneer.
Great book. It's a great book.
And it's great proof that you're onto something. I mean, to get Dr. H to do this, I mean, you can't be. I mean, that adds a hell of a lot to your brand.
Look, I would say this: when you think about patient financing in general, right? There's kind of two buckets, right? There are the solutions that approve prime patients. So, what is a prime patient? It's someone who has a higher FICO score, typically 680 or higher. So, those are the folks that can go into a Walmart or Target. When they say in Target, hey, would you like the red card, Target red card, they go in, they can get approved. People below that number generally can't get approved, right? So prime patients or prime people are what all the banks love, right? Because you're generally a fairly reliable payer. The problem is most of the U.S. does not have a prime score. They're not a prime patient. So you have two types of financing. You have those that approve prime patients, and you have those that approve what we call subprime, so people that are less than prime. The problem is most of the subprime solutions are junk. What do I mean by that? They're terrible processes. They're predatory, what you'd mentioned before, really terrible for patients. So something like a payday loan is an example of predatory, very bad stuff. And usually the process is very, very bad, very long. You've got to answer all these specific questions. So what the patient has now, or not necessarily a patient, but any person has now, they have a prime solution that is good for 40% of the people, or there's kind of the not so great solutions which really can harm your credit that kind of get the patient or person in a cycle of terrible credit that kind of continues. So what we do, which is different, is we, by using very good technology, algorithmic models from PhDs who are our employees that built the model. The idea is that we can approve your super prime and prime folks, and we can approve the subprime people as well, but we can give them great rates. And what's great rates? Better rates than they can get in their pocket today. Okay, so we want to be a simple solution, and we are. But the great thing is that folks that generally get declined everywhere in dentistry, and I see this every day, Howard, they come in, they say, oh, my credit is bad. Okay, well, let me check the iPad. It doesn't affect your credit whatsoever. They do a 30-second check. They get approved for $1,500. That could be the only approval that they've ever gotten in the past 5 years. And the APR that we'll give them, the interest rate that we'll give them, will be far lower, and it's basically equivalent to like a credit card rate. But the thing is, Howard, they couldn't get a credit card in the first place. And that's really where the technology comes in. We are a technology company first that offers patient financing. And that is really the key to the product, that we can cover the full credit spectrum of patients, giving them a fair rate in a super easy process. And that's why we're signing up, single unit, multi-unit, DSO practices right and left, because the process currently is broken for patient financing.
Amazing. I still am, thank you to the Persian Empire for coming up with algorithms. It's so hilarious. That's the name that algorithm comes from. Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi.
Wow.
And out of Khwarizmi, the Latin came up with algorithm. And it was just because nobody knew how to say that. And from the Persian Empire clear to the Roman Empire. But that was well, actually, that was 9th century, so the Roman Empire was done. But yeah, I think it's one of the biggest crimes in mathematics is that how we all say algorithm. After, how do we go from Khwarizmi to algorithms? But so just to be succinct, Sunbit will make an offer to 85% of all patients.
Yeah, so 85% of people who apply will get approved. So really 100% of patients with that FICO score that I mentioned before of 500 or greater will get approved. So it approximates about 85% of the population. Sometimes a bit higher, a bit lower, depending upon the group. You know, if you're in a more of a mixed demographic area, maybe it's 84%. If it's in a slightly better demographic, it could be even 90%. We have some DSOs. I can think of one in Florida, which is pretty big practice, does about 89% approval with us, which without understanding, like on a relative basis, Howard, most of these practices are used to 30%, 32%,
Right.
35%. I mean, if you go into any practice, you pick one, I'll go with you. If you ask them, okay, how many of you are satisfied with your current patient financing? I would like to see one hand be raised because I haven't seen it. They love the speed. They love the fact that it's very inclusive.
So when you're saying algorithm, it's probably a sliding interest rate too. I mean, if you're going to approve 85% of Americans, they're all not going to get the same rate.
Absolutely, and that's the unique thing, right? Because
this is where I get upset because I went to Creighton in Omaha, Nebraska, where Warren Buffett is,
Creighton.
And he came and talked to our class. And Saturday was the coolest day of the year. I mean, it was the Berkshire Hathaway
I
conference.
hope you invested. Did he give you the opportunity to invest?
Oh my God. It was 5.5 hours. It was just like if a musician listening to Beethoven and Bach with Charlie. And that state is one of the only states where all the credit cards are anchored at because they don't have all these usury laws.
Sure.
And the usury laws, I don't think Americans realize it goes back to the beginnings of religion. And I just wish they would understand this concept that if I have really bad credit, but I really want something, well, then you have the right to buy it at 25% credit.
Right.
And that in economics, that should make you want to not buy it anyway.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And but like say, it's like when the music's playing and everybody's dancing, everything's fine. And then in every recession, the first thing they figure out is, God, all the people with bad credit were the most likely not to repay. Thus, you're an evil predator. And it's like, you know what? If we trade and we both know what, even on something as horrible as a payroll advance that they do all over parts of Phoenix. I mean, she knows there's a Chase Bank on every corner.
Sure.
I mean, her world has made it so she wants to go to this trailer paycheck advance. Who knows? Maybe her sister works there. Who knows? But it's been a bad week. I mean, they just took away menthol cigarettes. And at the same time, the government wants to take over healthcare with universal healthcare. And so what's next? Cheeseburgers? I mean, Bloomberg tried to downsize the size of a Coke and people got freaked out. I mean, that slow-boiled frog, they're just going to take away every freedom you have until it blows up in their face. And I should have the right to smoke a menthol cigarette at my pay loan advance in a trailer park in South Phoenix. And if you got a problem with that, leave. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're free to choose, is what Milton Friedman always said. You're free to choose. And if you think that is a bad decision, look at who half the people you know married. It's like, I'd rather have a high-interest credit card loan than your spouse. And by the way, so what do you think Bill and Melinda's divorce, what do you think that did to their FICO score?
I think at that level, FICO probably doesn't matter a whole lot. I think they're bringing suitcases of cash everywhere they're going.
And what's funny is this is an inappropriate joke, but divorce has always been a luxury item. They're two richest men in the world. Gosh darn, Jeff Bezos of Amazon and Bill Gates of Microsoft. Even though it was going to cost them $75 billion, they're both right now thinking, well, that's the best $75 billion I ever spent. You know what I mean? I mean, divorce acts like a luxury item. Poor people stay together longer because they can't afford to move out. And rich people say, no, I think I'm going to invest in some peace of quiet mind. I was reading you just raised, and again, this build your brand. I mean, it's and people, we're talking about FICO scores. I mean, you guys got a loan for $26 million. Sunbit raises $26 million to provide loans for unexpected expenses that just came out.
Yeah, that was about a year ago. We raised an equity, and that's really to grow the company.
June 12th,
Yep.
2019.
Yeah, so we're continually growing. We have obviously, we fund the growth via equity. We also have, lines of credit and loans that fund the loans themselves. But we're growing rapidly. Look, again, the buy now, pay later space is huge, right? If you think specifically dentistry, right? Let's say you want to be able to go to the dentist, you want that same day dentistry, right? You want to go in, there's an emergency, your tooth hurts, $2,000. You want to be able, if you need the financing, you want to get it right there, then and there. You want to get in the operatory immediately. And a lot of times now, you can't even do that. Like, oh, you're approved for financing, but come back in 72 hours, and then we'll see you in 72 hours. So there could be a waiting period. So the process is broken. The process is very much broken. So, we're very big in the auto space. So if you're, again, we're focusing on the non-discretionary stuff, Howard, the needs and not wants. We really are focusing on the needs. So your car breaks down, you need a new transmission, brakes, muffler, etc. You need to get to work. It's $900. How are you going to pay for it? Again, like you saw, 30 seconds, you get qualified, and you can get on your way. And we do it respectfully, we do it fairly, and we treat you right. Same way in dentistry. I mean, there really aren't a lot of solutions that are really inclusive. What you see today, and if we were talking Alpha Dental earlier, right before the call. Before us, it's a 7-unit practice in Florida. Before us, they had about a 35% approval rate, and they were using, I think 3 or 4 different providers. So you can imagine the front office staff flopping around, a few different solutions. Okay, try this. You don't get qualified. You got declined. Try this, try this, try this. In the meantime, their credit's being hit every time. Terrible process. We came in, and now we're approving 90%. So it's I hate using the term game changer because it's really overused, but our offering is very, very unique in dentistry. And as an example, last week we signed 10 multi-unit practices and DSOs just in a week, and we continue to push and continue to grow.
That's amazing. And one of the things I always pick up on is how it's called one thing, and the model's one thing in, say, biology. Math, biology, physics, chemistry, biology, it's all exact terminology. And if you go to any country in the world, cosine, tangent are all the same.
Sure.
Then when you go to psychology, it's they really deviate so far from economics, it's hard to say. Like they say that the highest need is self-actualization. That's a want. You need food, water, shelter. You need a house if it's snowing. And when you have all your needs met, you go on to want self-actualization to be all that you can be. But if you call that a need, there's Homo sapiens has been around for 200,000 years. 108 million of them have already lived and died. And that's not a need. That's a rich people want. That's a rich world problem when kids say, well, I want to have meaning and purpose in my life. Well, that's a new thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that wasn't a common thing in the last 200,000 years. But psychology needs to redo a lot of their terminology, just bring it up to speeds. But you're saying that you like to focus on needs-based healthcare and transportation.
Healthcare, auto, things like, basically things that are non-Amazonable, right? Things that people need. You don't, you're not going to fund buying T-shirts or anything like that with us. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in kind of the consultative sell. So you go to the office of your dentist. There's a treatment coordinator there, of course, that is, you do your oral comprehensive exam. They sit down with you. They say, okay, Howard, based on what we looked at, here's 3 or 4 things we think you should, take care of in the next couple months. It's $3,000. These are the sort of things that we love, because the iPad, what I showed you before, what is it? It's a tool for that treatment coordinator, but it's also a very easy way to explain the process to the patient in a very, very transparent way. Everything's in plain English. You see what you're going to pay on a monthly basis. There's no funny business with balloon payments or any kind of extraneous fees or anything like that. We want to treat the customer or patient very, very well because they're going to work with us, not just in dentistry, but when they fix their car or do some other non-discretionary purchase in the future.
Okay, when you talk about needs, you said like health, like dentists and healthcare, autos, cars and transportation, versus what? Like versus what? Like what kind of ones?
Let's say exercise equipment, or you go on to a online site that deals with selling expensive T-shirts or expensive shoes, things like that.
Versus what was that first one you said? Versus what?
T-shirts, versus
What did you say before that one though? Say treadmills or
like exercise equipment or something like that. I mean, things like wants, they're more susceptible to economic downturns, right? I mean, what you need an exercise equipment today, you may not need it in a year if there's a downturn. Plus,
okay, so but where I'm going with this is okay. So healthcare is a big, it was it's about 17-18% of the economy. But you're in a lot more dental offices than physicians' offices.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
dentistry.
We're focused. For healthcare, we're focused on two things. We're focused on dentistry and we're focused on eyewear.
Eyewear.
Eyewear. So you go to, let's say you go to iMart Express. If you've heard of iMart Express, they have 250 locations nationwide. You need a pair of glasses. Again, it's a consultative sort of sell, a consultative experience. You sit down. You can get one pair of glasses for $225, but maybe you want to get some contacts. Maybe you want to get a second pair. Maybe it's $400. Well, you can pay everything today, Howard, or lo and behold, you can pay $20 a month for the next 12 months with very limited or no interest. And that's a great deal for both the consumer and for the partner. And it's also obviously non-discretionary. Generally, people don't get glasses because they want to get glasses. They get them. It's a need.
So those are opticians, not
opticians. Correct. Not ophthalmologists. Correct.
Yeah. So you're an eyewear opticians.
Correct.
And so you're in dentistry.
Sure.
Well, that's where I'm going. So you're in Sunbit focuses on healthcare needs in dentistry and eyewear opticians and transportation. Versus once like exercise equipment and T-shirts, but for your overweight in dentistry and eyewears, it makes me think something had to be broken in dentistry. I mean,
something's completely broken.
Okay, well, it's obvious something's broken.
Something's broken.
Because dentistry is only 5% of healthcare,
right?
So when you go in healthcare and you pick out the little nickel, it's like you miss the.
But here's the thing in dentistry, which is unique. Dentistry for 30 years is very, very familiar with financing. Right?
Because of care credit?
Because of care credit, right, clearly. And so if you kind of compare two things. If you go to an eyewear or an optician, they're generally not that familiar with people financing their glasses. You go to dentistry, everyone knows how critical financing is to getting patients in, getting them through their treatment plan, making them happy and having them return. So we initially looked at dentistry, and what we saw was not a lot of people happy with the current solutions that are out there. Again, it's the process. We think about overall in medical, right? The trend is non-invasive, right? You want non-invasive surgery. You want in and out, right? You want it comfortable for the patient, comfortable for the customer. But whether you're getting financing for dentistry or you're going to Best Buy to fill out an application, do you rent versus own? Are you married versus single? How much money do you make annually? These are pretty intrusive questions. And quite frankly, they're kind of relics from 1980 because those companies generally, they're finance companies, right? They're not technology companies. A lot of that information you saw when I did when I qualified you for financing, we don't need nearly all of that information. We do need some information, your name, your email address, your physical address, right? Your cell number, and that's it. And then we're able to do what we need to do on the back end, looking at thousands of pieces of information and get you an offer. So it's about the quickness of the process. It's about the approvals. And currently today, there's bad processes in low approvals. So the market is ripe, and not just dentistry, but in many markets, which we haven't attacked yet, but we clearly will. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity that we see in front of us.
And then so if something's broken. I'm trying to cover your lingo. I'm not sure. Where were you actually born? Was it Philadelphia?
No, I'm Chicago. I'm a Midwest guy.
Chicago?
Yep.
You said faster, efficient, cleaner. I'm like, cleaner. Is that urban slang? What do you mean by cleaner?
I mean, when I say cleaner, I mean when you see our offer, you see exactly what you're paying today and what you're going to pay every month. There's no games. It says, okay, you selected a 12-month plan. You're paying, let's say, $60 a month. It's coming out of your checking account automatically on the first of every month. If there's any interest, you'll know what the interest is on a monthly basis. You see it right there. It's all there. There's no games. There's no maintenance fee. There's no annual fee. There's no prepayment penalty. None of that, what I call just junk, right? It's very clean. We send you an email. You have all the information that's right there. We have support. It's very clean.
It's just, I'm just cracking up because I was from Kansas. I went to, and I just never heard clean used that way.
Maybe I took it from Panera. Panera says they have, I think their slogan is something like clean food, something like
Well, you're from the University of Chicago. You got to tell everyone. You always got to tell. Yeah, Milton Friedman taught me that when I was in college.
I went to University of Illinois, not University of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
In Champaign, yeah.
Okay, and well, then I would lie. I'd still say it was. I went to that university. You know, the one near Chicago where Milton Friedman was.
There you go.
But isn't that funny how I cannot believe after reading Free to Choose and getting an MBA that I would live to a time where the New York Times runs full-page articles about how Milton Friedman's dogma was just baloney, and then they disprove it with their feelings.
Everything's about feelings now.
And what's really the most interesting is the death of facts. I mean, you can literally, I mean, with really smart people, you can just get on the internet and you can show them all this data, and they go, "Well," I was talking to one person, and it was about a property, real estate property deed posted on the Maricopa County assessment site, and she goes, "Yeah, but they're so far behind the times and they're so outdated. I wouldn't even trust that." It's like you wouldn't trust a deed posted by the goddamn state government, and you still want everybody to go along with your theory. So yeah, it's kind of the death of facts.
I think it's I don't know if it's the death of facts. I think it's people have their own set of facts, and everyone's facts sometimes are different, even though you're looking at the same thing, right? It's the narrative. It's your own personal narrative plus what you see equals your definition of facts, right? And everyone's seem to be different.
Yeah, but I don't know. I still believe in math as the language of the universe.
Math too.
And if you have an observation and you describe it, and you describe it in words, and you lay out your experiments, and you ask a question, and you devise an experiment to test the question, and it agrees with your guess or disagrees with it, and then you actually take the time to write it down and publish it, and then everybody else does the same experiment, and they all get the same result, that's a fact.
Yep.
And I grew up in a extremely religious household where, my first two sisters walked right out of high school into the nunnery.
Wow.
And that's an environment where that's a totally different environment than one Milton Friedman and Rose Friedman might have believed in. You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. Where, but anyway, I'm going to go over to something else, and
Sure.
a lot of these numbers are hard to like we can't even get the American Dental Association to publish a chart of accounts. So you have all these DSOs and practice management. Yeah, my labor is only 20%. Okay, does that include FICA matching? What? Health insurance? What? Continuing education? I mean, what is your, tell me the chart of accounts, everything coded for labor.
Sure.
I mean, it's just, and now you got the DSOs. A lot of them are reporting they're adding labor and or lab and supplies into one unit. Others are breaking it apart, and it needs to go together because if you have a 10% lab bill and then you get a Cerac machine and your lab bill goes down, but you're buying all these milling blocks in your supplies, it looks like your supplies are high. I mean, but you can't even get chart accounts. And a lot of these metrics that like in the auto industry, they would all talk the same language. Like treatment plan acceptance rates. I mean, okay, well, if you came in, I said, and by the way, you should bleach your teeth and get a tan and wear a wig, and he doesn't do all those things. I mean, that's cosmetic dentistry shouldn't be part of a case acceptance rate, but it would be if it was orthodontics, because in America you have 10,800 orthodontists telling everybody they got to get their bite fixed or they won't be able to eat with occlusion. And I'm pretty sure 1/3 of the people are obese, 1/3 are really overweight, and I've never seen anybody starve to death in America because of a denture. I mean, my God, if anything, the only thing braces should be used for in America is to wire their teeth shut so they can no longer eat. So case acceptance rate, I mean, we're dead before we start, but the bottom line with case acceptance rate is everything I know in sales is impulsive buying. You talk to all these car dealers, they say, why don't you want to buy them online? He goes, dude, do you know what people do when they get a car? They went out to dinner, they had a rough day, they had too many drinks, they're with their wife, God dang it, I'm getting me a new Ford 150 pickup truck. It's the impulse buy. Raise 4 kids. You check out of the Safeway grocery store line, and what's the only thing 2 feet off the ground? All these brightly colored candies and yellow M&Ms, and it's all the impulse buy. And every dentist that gets it and gets into same-day dentistry, it's like, you're right, Jay, you're right here. You want to do this right now? Hell yeah, they want to do it. They haven't been to the dentist in 5 years, and they're in your office right now. How do you lose that deal? Well, let me show you. Well, we'll need to do a predetermination for your insurance, and we're going to send this off to give you time to cool off. I mean, you're being crazy. It's like all of a sudden you want to spend a bunch of money, so let's cool you off with a predetermination, and we'll get back to you when you're ice cold. And gosh darn, they haven't been into the dentist 5 years. My view is Americans always spend more money than they earn. So if the whole country gets $1, they're going to spend $1.10 thanks to banking, insurance, and financing. Sure. And they're going to spend all their money anyway. So I'd rather them spend it all on their teeth instead of at the dispensary store on bongs and glow lights, and trips to Disneyland. I mean, do you agree about the benefits of same-day dentistry, and do you think fintech will help that happen?
I think that there's a lot of people, and I see it every day. They have emergencies. They come in. They need work. And again, I don't know about dentists putting additional things on the treatment plan that are cosmetic in nature. I'm talking specifically about the legitimate treatment plans that cover real dentistry. But what we see is that, and I don't know, I'd like to hear it from you, but when we ask dentists, what's the average full case acceptance? I hear between 15 to 20%. That's generally what I hear. And again, maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower in some areas. Okay, what's the reason? Well, the reason is most people, I don't care how much money you make, don't have $3,000 to charge on their credit card or to charge in their debit card. They need help. So then they try to apply, but there aren't a lot of good options out there because the patient financing hasn't evolved in 25 years. Think about like just a general dentist office, right? What's the oldest thing in the dentist office? Is it the paint on the walls? Is it the chairs in the waiting room? It's not the equipment, right? The equipment generally, you got to keep on updating it. You got to spend the money. What's the oldest thing in the dental office? Patient financing.
Unfortunately, it's me in my dental office, but other than
I haven't seen your office, but maybe. But what we see, the oldest thing in the office, which is kind of shocking, is the patient financing. It's 25 years old. It hasn't kind of kept pace. And so that innovation, that fintech innovation, is kind of critical, I think, to bring a lot of these dental groups forward because they're cash strapped, as you know, right? margins are less maybe than they were 5 years ago. Costs are rising, right? Lab costs, supply costs, et cetera. They want to bring more patients in. They're spending money on marketing, right, on SEO, PPC. They get the patient to the office, but then the patient can't afford the treatment plan. So I think the same-day dentistry, I think it's pretty critical that there needs to be some solutions out there. And quite honestly, we're one that can really help folks, and we see it with our partners, increase the case acceptance rates. Because again, you may not have $3,000 in your pocket, but you may have $125 or $150 a month that you can pay over 24 months to get the work done today or tomorrow. So that's really what we see quite a bit when I visit some of our offices.
And here's what I want to tell the young kids. I mean, young kids come out of dental school. Number one, get a historical view of value from Wall Street from 1880 to today. It's all been technology driven. It started off with the Industrial Revolution. Started in England with a combustion engine, and it was so big and clunky it could only pump flooded water out of coal mines. But everything over time keeps getting smaller. That's one of the fingers: faster, easier, higher quality, lower price, smaller. And then when that thing got so much smaller and better, it got on ships. And then when the ships got to America, it was canals. Communication started with a wire telegraph from London to New York, turned into the telephone, turned into the internet. The telephone is Internet 2.0, and the telephone is Telegraph 2.0, and the Internet's Telegraph 3.0, and that's where all the the technology disrupting manual labor of plowing behind a field. And in dentistry, the old school guys hanging on to tradition and doing everything the way my mama did it, and the same recipe for meatballs and all that stuff like that. They're so into their art, and that's why I love dentists. I mean, they would rather go to a class on root canals by Dr. H than about patient financing and sales. And I'm not a salesman, you know. That's just not their deal. So in dentistry, I've never had an original idea. I mean, my next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson, was a dentist, and my dad owned a Sonic drive-in. I literally picked Sonic. I mean, a dentist, I don't even know what they were doing 2 doors down. I still think it was when you developed an x-ray, you got to go in the dark room with the dental assistant. And I still, I remember that the most. So I think that had a huge impact on me. But in dentistry, you got to look at the DSOs. The DSOs are going to get an A in the business, and they don't know if Dr. H could show them a root canal. They would know if it was short or long. That's not what they do. But I'm very impressed by you, the fact that you got Tim Turcinoff, founder of Alpha Dental in Jacksonville, on board. That's a big DSO. You got who else? You got David Ting with the Boston Dental Group that now he calls
great group.
BDG Dental Services. It used to be Boston Dental Group.
Yep.
You got these guys. You got Pedram Bina, of the CEO of PHC Dental Group, and her co-partner Amir Curry. You've got some really, I mean, as far as the business of dentistry, I don't care what your practice management consultant said. She doesn't have 1,000 offices or 500 offices. Sure. I mean, it's kind of funny. The people who own 25 offices could never speak at the Greater New York meeting or Chicago Midwinter deal, because the practice management consultant, who is mostly like a religion and a lot of theory and, you know, not a lot of provable observations and their advice. Whereas you've got DSOs that are knocking this out. So the fact that you were able to penetrate the DSO market so fast means that they believe in the model. And of course, they try everything fast. I mean, it's like marketing. It's like, I believe you do every marketing there is, but get a common denominator of dollars per head. How much did it cost to get a head in here? And if this marketing deal, say I'm doing direct mail and I'm getting new patients for 100 a head.
Yep.
And I'm doing radio and it's 200 a head, and TV's 300 a head, and the yellow pages are 400 a head. You just move the $400 money down to the $100 money. So the DSOs are going to try everything, track the hell out of it, and if they adopt it, it starts spreading amongst them, and you're doing that very, very well. So
look, we love the single units, we love the multi units, we love the DSOs. It's all coming together. If you think about the way I look at it is this, and maybe this is a bit broad, but if you think about like Elon Musk, right? He had no experience in building autos, right? He was one of the founders of PayPal, saw a process was broken in car manufacturing and in EV cars. He's now dominant. The guy who's the CEO of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, he wasn't like the CEO or CFO of Marriott, right? He saw a need that Marriott didn't see, right? He's short-term stays, exotic, interesting, found a niche, they're dominant. The guy from Uber, right? Kalanick, again, he wasn't the CEO.
What's his name? What's his name?
Travis Kalanick.
And you're having a hard time pronouncing his name?
I think it's Kalanick. But
and where was he born?
I know where he was born.
Where?
Northridge in California.
Okay.
So
because the first guy you said, Elon Musk, he was born in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly.
And and everybody, you know what % of the people that drive a Tesla are against immigration? I mean, this whole country is built on immigration, and now everyone's into shooting their feet on immigration. I mean, 88% of everybody in America right now studying to get a PhD were not born in the United States. 88%. My gosh, the only reason my four boys didn't want to go into dentistry is because they just didn't want to do the calculus and the chemistry.
Yep.
But
my point is that all these guys had no experience. They were total outsiders, right? Total outsiders, right? What did the CEO of Airbnb know about hotels? He probably knew that there's a process that's broken, right? You come from the outside. You look at issues. You're not encumbered by legacy systems or legacy thinking. You come up with a creative plan and you build a market-leading category. And we believe that's what we're doing here as well. We're taking processes, fintech, the buy now, pay later space, focusing on the needs, and we're creating a category. And that's why we think we're going to be successful, not just now in dentistry. We think, 2, 3, 5, 8 years, we've got a long runway to build the company. And that's really what we're focusing on.
Again, you've got a lot of really hot people on board. Maryam, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She's been on the show. She was 419. Baramian. Maryam Baramian, founder of Westwind Phoenix. She's on board. You got Mike Dalton, MBA, CPA, CEO of Pediatric Dental Brands on board. Why those are really smart people? What do you think? Why do you think they went on this? And by the way, this is not a commercial. Did you pay me money to come on?
No.
Did you get a bill?
I don't think so.
Well, check your email. It might have gone into the spam folder. It's for 100 cases of Jameson whiskey.
There you go.
So why would someone like who has an MBA? No, look at this. Mike Dalton has an MBA, a CPA, CEO of Pediatric Dental Brands right here.
A lot of letters.
And he's on board. Maryam is smarter than I am on. She's smarter on her dumbest day than I am on my smartest day. She's on board. She was also the founder of Coupon Doc, Coop Doc. But why do you think the DSOs? Well, I'm going to ask this a different way.
Sure.
Are you a fan of Shark Tank?
Yeah, I am.
And who's obviously the smartest guy on Shark Tank by a mile?
To me, I think it's Cuban.
No, it's always the bald guy in the room. It's always
you Mr. Wonderful?
the just any bald man. The bald man is always the smartest man in the room. And I know what he'd say to you right now. He would be saying to you, Jay, come on, man. There's care credit for 30 years. There's all kinds of other space. What's different about you?
I think it's very clear. High approvals, quick process, and super easy for the front office to offer it, and super easy for the patient to accept the offer. So I'll give you an example, Howard. Some of the DSOs that you mentioned earlier, not only are we primary, right? We're doing more business with them than they ever did with any other provider, right? So it's not that we're a replacement solution. We're a replacement and expansion solution. More people are going to be offered financing, and more people are going to be able to accept their treatment plan than ever were before because the process is easy. Again, you go online, you want things now. Everyone wants things now. It's not just the millennials. Older folks too. They want things now. Why shouldn't you be able to get what you need right now in the dentist office? And it doesn't happen today. So when you ask me why are they going with us, you know, the folks you mentioned with pediatric and BDG and some of these others, because the process is broken and we fix it. And they love the fact that in 30 seconds, someone gets approved. You know, over 85% get approved. So while there's a lot of history in the space, there's players that have combined 40 years of experience there. When someone comes across a better solution that solves their problems, they're going to go with us. And that's what we're experiencing. That's why we're seeing really hypergrowth over the past 18 to 24 months.
Yeah. So Sunbit, their technology solution is much faster. It's more efficient, cleaner.
I think fairer, transparent. I think maybe transparency is a better word than cleaner.
But you know, sometimes you read like an ad,
sure,
and it's so dirty and cluttered.
Yep.
What's the opposite of clutter? Non-cluttered, cleaner.
I think transparency is a good word. I think it's good. You look for, and I'm not just for dentistry. You go to Best Buy, you go to another retailer, you apply for a credit card. The credit card document is 20 pages long, right? You read it. What does it all mean? How much am I going to pay? Is there a promotional interest that if I don't pay in a certain period of time, I'm going to get stuck with a balloon payment from day one, and then the interest is going to continue to accrue? We focus on transparency. We want to be fair to the patient. We want to be fair to the patient, fair to the customer. They should know what they're paying, you know, in 30 days. It should be a fixed amount. They should be able to call us up, look at their activity, go online, see their activity. Transparency, I think, is a big thing because big banks generally not so transparent.
Right. And and also, Doc, you can learn a lot by this because just like these finance terms, they don't know the FICA rate. They don't know how the interest rate is annualized. They don't know when they get done buying a car. They every single person that's ever brought their car by my house after they bought it because they want to show, you know, my boys, any of their friends, to this day, they go buy a new car. They got to drive around and show. And it's so cute because they always, boys are always going to show you the wheels.
Yep.
And then you got to sit in the car because they're going to turn on the music.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all the emotional hot buttons. But if you just say to them, say, do you care if I ask how much was that? And they'll say, this F-150 was, you know, 80 grand. And I'll say, okay, but by the time you make all your payments, you're down, all your payments, everything, how much was the cost of the car? And of that, how much is interest? And it's they
won't know.
They have a clue.
Most people won't know.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
And then you'll see them doing even crazier stuff. I'll never forget this. The last time I was in the you know, I got out of school in '87, and the economy was having, you know, from the inflation of the '70s and the '80s. When I got here to Phoenix, everybody's selling their house. You know, the house that's being sold had an interest rate of about 14% or plus. And I was so lucky because when I bought my first house in 1987, the interest rate was only 12%. And but back then, it used to blow my mind that the house would be $100,000,
right?
And they'd say, "Well, I'm going to offer 95." I think 95 once you offer on the interest rate. I mean, who cares
over
about
30 years? That 12% is
Well, that $100,000 house they buy, they're going to pay $200,000 of interest for the $100,000 deal, and there's a reason that everybody with the same brain that can drive a car 80 miles down the road, why does almost no one understand the breakdown of the expense versus the cost of using other people's money? Because it's intentional, and I think transparency is right. They intentionally make sure that when this transaction is done, you did not understand it, so they weren't transparent.
Sure.
They weren't using uncluttered, simpler, easy way to understand this. And
think about this, and I don't know the answer, but in dentistry school, how much time is spent on personal finances? Or you open up a dentist office, what is your income statement or balance sheet? I mean, are there classes? Probably not too extensive, right? Because there's a lot of obviously specialty classes, etc. You go to colleges today, undergraduate degree. How many personal finance classes are there even offered? Probably very few. But from the time you graduate college to the time you pretty much die, it's a pretty important skill, right? But it's not taught anywhere. So that, I think, is the answer to why don't people know? Because what do people focus on? They focus on the monthly payment, right? because it's easy, it's quantifiable, right? Okay, I know I'm going to pay that F-150. Maybe it's 80 grand. Who knows what the interest is, but I know I'm going to pay $450 a month. Can I pay that? Mind you, they don't know they're going to be paying that for 72 months or whatever it is, and there's obviously interest that gets tacked on. So I think it's I think it's a lot of education that's needed there. What we try to do, again, you make the decision. We put the numbers in front of you. Obviously, our interest rates are very low comparative to what's out there. We try to be, again, clean, transparent, so you know what you're paying today. It doesn't change. There's no balloon payments or any of that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately people do get in trouble because they don't understand what's happening, on the back end. So I think transparency is one of the most, if not the most important things when you're going out and getting a loan.
Okay, so on dentistry, one of the 50 forms, a big one's finance, and this one's patient financing. This question is asked right now. Okay. Hi, we have always been using Care Credit for years, but realize we really need to offer more options for our patients, especially with the current economic market. Does anyone have any recommendation, and is anyone working with Proceed Financing? Just thought, and by the way, the best marketers in the world just answer their own questions about their own space on Dentaltown. I mean, it is so. The next guy says, we are also looking into more options, especially for Invisalign, maybe Lending Point. And the next guy says, has anybody tried compassionate financing? I cannot wait to post your video on this because Toothborn, who I love, he's got 500 posts, says, look at Sunbit. They've been mostly used in the automotive sector, and now they are migrating into the health sector. There are more technology and less banking. They basically approve 90% of individuals as long as they have a bank account, bank card.
A debit card, yeah.
Oh, they got to have a debit card.
Debit card.
Oh, okay,
That's all you need.
Okay. So is that right English, a bank account, bank card, or should that just say debit card?
I think it's just debit card.
The percentage they charge depends on the risk they associate with the loan and the patient. Loan sizes are not very large. How large are they?
Right now we go up to $8,000. And it's steadily going to be increasing beyond that over the next couple of months. So when we look at dentistry overall, we believe we cover about 90% of the market today, because obviously there's procedures that are 30, 40,000. And what's surprising, not really surprising, but a lot of folks that do like the full mouth reconstruction, they still use us first. And again, I want to be clear, Howard, we're a primary provider. We don't. All our partners use us, or they try to use every patient every time, the first time. Because, again, we're going to approve the most people and give the most dollars overall. Because, again, we're approving 85% versus the standard, 30, 35% that most offices get. And that's why, by the way, probably a lot of your subscribers are asking the question, because they're using solutions that, are not satisfying the needs out there.
My gosh, these are, this is such a big deal. I mean, when you look at the United States, and then people say we're number one, what does that mean? You can't be number one in population. China's got 1.3 billion, India's got 1.2 billion. You're number 3 in population, so there's something quantifiable you're not number one in. But you're definitely number one in America in banking, insurance, financing, music, movies, healthcare, and military. That's our export thing, and now recently, the high-tech boom out of Silicon Valley.
I'd say innovation, I think, is a big one. Yeah,
innovation. Sure. But healthcare, insurance, banking, and financing is something that America just got. And it's just amazing how that's just one of those things where if you got an A on banking, insurance, and financing,
sure, and
you got a C on all your practice management activities in your dental office, you're going to have a very rich and rewarding career. And you have to get that. But and I also thought it was very interesting that from the dentist using Care Credit for 30 years, we've trained all of our peoples and patients, and you recognize that coming in dentistry that it's kind of the culture of dentistry. Dentists do patient financing. Patients have been using it forever. I mean, my gosh, it's just a big brand thing. Care Credit, boy, that was a fall from grace. When I got my MBA in 1998, God, whenever you said Jack Welch, you had to make the sign of the cross and drink holy water and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, Jack was just the legend in all things management.
Yep.
And GE owned Care Credit. And did you ever think you would see that GE fall from grace from that high? I mean,
there could be a lot of reasons. I have my own thoughts on that, but what a great company it was. But then they got rid of, at the height, well, there was a couple things, right? They installed a new CEO, right before 9/11, who was hell-bent on divesting basically all the profitable operations, all the banking operations that were generating really all the net income, that were kind of masking what was really happening with the, industrial businesses. And it's kind of like, Target and some of these other retail folks where they sell their credit card portfolio. That's a big moneymaker, right? So GE was selling off, GE Money and their parts of, obviously, GE Capital, and then kind of the emperor doesn't wear many clothes, right?
So why would he do that?
I think they wanted to. I think on the industrial side they were very, very strong, right? But then the economy kind of tanked, so they didn't have a lot of the, they again, this is just my thoughts, but they divested a lot of the financials at the lowest point, so they didn't kind of extract the most value that they could, right? And then there was a downturn after 9/11, plus the new CEO, not sure how good he was. There's debate.
He was horrible.
Again,
he was horrible.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of debate on that. But now they're not the same company. Now I think they're coming back a little bit, but this is a multi-year, maybe like a decade process, because I think they have a good guy in place now. But this is, they had a bad 10, 12 years.
And it's really weird because, in 1900, healthcare wasn't even 1% of the economy. By the end of the century, it's 14%. Now we're just 1/5 through. It's 2021, and it's already up to 17%. It's the fastest growing sector of the economy.
Yep.
And so I'm spending all this money, but Jack Welch had to retire because he's 65. It was 65 50 years ago. What about all these pilots? I did 3 Arizona Ironmans, which is proof of some supernatural existence or something that I could actually do that. And I'm like, all the economic activity. This sounds so rude and so horrible, but if a million children in daycare died, or 1 million people in a nursing home died, versus 1 million Americans between like 55 and 65 at the peak of their management, their success. All their ducks, it's all, and then they say, oh, well, you're 65, you got to retire. And when I was doing Ironman, there were pilots that picked up the sport after they were forced to retire and doing, 6-hour Ironmans, but they're not allowed to pay an airplane, yet that company paid all those medical bills.
Yep.
And Jack Welch, the guru of gurus has to retire at 65, and it's the same thing in 1950. So do you think we should just cancel healthcare because no matter how healthy and long you live, the government's still going to say you can't work after a certain age?
It's something.
Jack Welch, they sent him home packing because he was 65.
They sent him home packing, but I think he made a big mistake in picking his successor. He made a tremendous mistake. And that kind of set the wheels in motion. I think also, too, there was some pretty good timing with Jack Welch. When he left, things were humming. They were humming. And then the new guy came in. They have a bloated board, lack of oversight. And again, they had a very, the company was very hard to understand, totally not transparent, right? But basically all the financial, the GE Capital, all those divisions were generating all the money for the company, or a huge chunk of it. And then they decided, okay, let's sell all these divisions off. It's not exactly smart strategy.
I'll never forget when I met with it was John Miles. He was the CEO of Dentistry, kind of the guy that was responsible for taking it public and making it really what it is today. And I was having dinner with him in Chicago, and I said to him, based on your background, like you could have done anything, anywhere. You got the tools that you could have gone anywhere, done anything you want. And I said, why dentistry? And he says, my God, they're just the most brand loyal people I've ever seen in any market.
Interesting.
He said, and then he's giving me all this data, like, women are supposedly brand loyal to their purse and shoe. Dentists beat that. every metric he had on brand loyalty, Dentistry was number one. And we sat there at dinner just poring over this data because he was publicly traded. He had the best information on the industry, and they're just really, really brand loyal. And you are thinking that your goal, you were saying earlier that you think Dentistry could be half the whole company's sales?
Could be. Look, I could tell you this. There's runway from now as far as the eye can see. So our goal is to execute. That's the bottom line. We believe we have a great product. Our partners, like you mentioned before, BDG, Pediatric, others really like it. The patients like it. So we just need to focus on the execution. Where it takes us, we'll see. But we plan to really push this quite far.
One thing
Sure.
in your space that's a real negative is when dentists get chargeback. They want what is it called?
I would love to talk about that.
Well, I brought it up just for you. Gosh, in overtime,
Okay.
recourse. I mean, they say I'm going to finance this, but I want like 8% of the treatment plan, and then they find out next month they want the money
That's
back.
great. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Okay.
Chargebacks. At Sunbit, we do not issue chargebacks to our partners. Okay? The transaction occurs. It's a $2,000 transaction. The patient consummates the transaction. We pay the dentist or the office or the DSO 100% of the treatment less the merchant fee. We don't do any kind of clawbacks. So if, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what it would be, we don't take the money out of the dentist's account. If there's disputes, the dispute should be between the patient and the doctor, but we don't do chargebacks at the company. Again, trying to be transparent. It's a big thing. Some practices we see, Howard, have a lot of chargebacks. Some don't have any at all, but it's clearly an issue for those that do. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork that needs to be filled out. Did you write the person's social security number? Did you write the person's address correctly? And there's a lot of nitpicking going on. It's a tremendous amount of time to come up with that backup information that the credit card issuer needs. We don't do chargebacks.
Man, it was so fun talking to you.
Likewise.
And you have to have your CEO come back a year from now or whatever and give us an update on what we're doing. And thank you so much for coming in the studio.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it.
I'm so tired of talking to people through Zoom.
Yep.
It's just awesome to have someone
Thank you.
come
Appreciate
back
it, Howard.
into the herd. Thanks for all you do for dentistry, and
thank you for what
good
you
luck.
do to dentistry.
And if anybody tells you complains about predatory lending, you tell them to call me.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
All right.
Thanks, Howard.
Have a good day.
Thank you.